Let's do it.
Okay. We will.
You ready to go?
I am.
Okay, awesome.
Hey, everybody. And welcome to Slip Into the Night, episode 28, Sacred Spaces. I had a woman once tell me she had a sacred space. I told her it was kind of more of a defiled space, but...
Oh dear.
Anywho.
How did that fly?
Good. It was the right person to say it to. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. We are here, still amidst the fun COVID-19 pandemic. Hoo-ha, good time had by all. Not really. Kind of weathering it out still. How was your week, Holly?
My work has required me to take 2 days of pandemic pay, which meant that they are trying to, because I guess basically budget issues, they needed to decrease people's pay or hours, and so part of the solution was to ask people to stay home and get a reduced rate called pandemic pay. So I ended up staying home 2 days this week, and I'm okay with that. I'll take one for the team if I get to stay home and still get paid for it.
Yeah, no, I mean,
I appreciated that my work did that for us.
Yeah, no, and some people aren't getting even that. I mean, some people are just getting, laid right off or let right go, or I know like here locally there's like some places that have just, out and out shut right down. I mean, I know that some of them had plans to shut down, but like this just like literally solidified everything for them.
Yeah.
Took them right to the edge. So it's it's been odd. And I mean, this past week, I mean, with my stuff, I do eBay, and was told by the post office this week that they're, the media mail, which most of the stuff that I sell is books, is they're not, it's not considered essential. So they're going to be running it a little slower.
Yep.
So I mean, people are still going to get their packages and everything, but it's just going to be at a slower rate than what it was. Good morning, Swamp Girl. Very rarely see Swamp Girl. Long-time listener to the 40 and Slip.
Good morning.
I've never seen her listening on this show. So, good morning, Swamp Girl.
Good morning. I love the alligator.
Yes, I think she's down Carolina somewhere, I want to say, is her area. So it's been a weird week, and dealing with how the stores are doing their shit, and moving around. It's really strange being on like any of the highways around here or major routes that normally you would see a lot of traffic on. Where now generally it's very, very sparse. You'll still see times of the day when it'll be heavier, but not like it was. It's very sparse traffic, and it's like, wow, what kind of a world are we living in right now? Like, you drive down 95 and there's just like not that many cars on the highway either side.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's what it is here. Although there's been some times when I've been a little bit surprised that there's been more traffic.
Yeah.
Than I have expected. But it's like a daily thing. Some days there's like nothing, and then some days there's a lot more than I expected. So
Yeah. It's it's still a road ahead, I think, going on. Um, oh, she is from South Carolina, Swamp Girl, and the gator's name is Fiona. She is the size of a bus.
oh, she can't go see
And
her nest
I'll
this
go see her
year.
nest this year. Huh.
Oh.
Sorry to hear that, Swamp Girl. Um, but yeah, it's been weird adapting because like I've told many people, like I work from home anyway, so I'm home a lot. You know, I was used to staring at the four walls, but I at least got to go out. And now I don't get that. Like I could go outside, like I could go out and walk around, but I don't get to go anywhere that I used to be able to get out to go to, like walk around when I go out to purchase like books and stuff, walking around and doing that shit. So,
Yeah.
it's a different situation. At least I was a little bit better adapted for it, I think, to start.
Right. Yep.
A lot of people aren't, and a lot of people are having a hard time being stuck inside, being stuck at home, not really going anywhere. Yeah, you can get outside, but you can't really go anywhere and do anything. So it's a new type of life, and I mean, like I said, my adaptation to it hasn't been that, it hasn't been much of a change for me.
Mhm.
But, for some people it's been radical.
Yeah. Yep.
Um,
Absolutely. And I mean, with the business I work in, I hear a lot of people's stories of, and it's across the board. Some people are handling it really well. Some people are not. There's definitely a segment of the population that's, especially like the older folks are very scared and staying at home. And, you know, um, if you watch a lot of the news and listen to what is being said, it can create a lot of like anxiety. And if you are already someone who has anxiety, this just kind of like ramps it up
oh yeah.
all the more. And if you're someone who already has some like baseline depression, and then you're seeing some of these like images on the screens of the death numbers and that kind of stuff, it is exacerbating um, a range of mental health
Oh yeah.
conditions. So, take care of yourself, take care of your mental health. Reach out to people if maybe you can't
Yeah.
see them, but you can talk to them on the phone. Um,
Yeah. I mean,
important.
have video conferences or whatever with people.
Hmm.
Holly and I have talked together. We do this together, but I mean, like
Hmm.
we've kept in contact with like having like a video conversation like once a week or so.
Yeah.
I've tried to make sure I've kept everything open with everybody else. Um, it's going to be a strange time. Like I just had my birthday, and I didn't do anything, didn't go see anybody. I mean, my big thing for my birthday was I got to get into a hangout with David Batdorf, who I haven't talked to in a long time. Used to do the down the rabbit hole with him quite a bit,
Hmm.
and Matt. And I had one
Hmm.
drink. I had a one shot of whiskey, and just sat and shot the shit with those guys for a few hours.
Hmm.
And that was
Yeah.
it. That was my birthday hoorah. That was it. But that's what it is right now. It is what it is. Get through.
Hmm.
Figure it out.
Yep. Um, but definitely try to reach out. If you're feeling penned in or um,
Oh yeah.
isolated, because feelings of isolation are actually really detrimental to the human psyche. We are meant to be social creatures, and
Yeah, if you're feeling alone, reach out.
if you're feeling scared, talk to someone with some, like your doctor's office or whatever, to kind of, there's a lot on the news that is sensationalized, and the national news is focusing on the hot spots. It may or may not be accurate for your area. Talk to someone in the know, like your to kind of get a realistic feel of what your risks are in your area,
Yeah.
so that you can kind of have um,
A better handle of what's
a
going on around you.
absolute, yes, around you. And that's my point. Like, I live in a small town in New Hampshire. What is happening here is not what's happening, and it is nowhere near what's happening in New York City. But
No.
if all you see is New York City, you kind of get a distorted view of what the situation is in your area.
Yeah.
So where I am, is we're mostly just sheltering in place to prevent the spread, but New Hampshire has had very few cases compared to the big cities.
Yeah, I was looking at like a case graph, not a graph, but like a spreadsheet type thing per state, and like Maine and New Hampshire, it's not that. I mean, the amount of cases isn't huge,
Right.
but it's here.
It is absolutely, it is in the community. It is doing what they call community spread now, whereas in the beginning they mostly attributed it to people who had traveled or had contact with travelers.
Mhm.
But now it could be out on like surfaces and in the environment, in the air, and you can pick it up in what they call community spread. So
Mhm.
that is one of the reasons why you may want to wear masks in public if you go to the market or whatever. Which, although you want to, get one that fits your face well and creates that good barrier.
Yeah, and keep your hands clean. You know, my suggestion would be to keep hand sanitizer with you, but don't touch your fucking face. And the minute you get home, wash your hands. After being out and about and doing anything. So just, and keep safe. Like Holly was saying, check up on people.
Yeah. Well, and if
And
hand
if you're one of those people who's alone, reach out to other people.
yeah.
Mhm.
So hand sanitizer can be hard to find. So, soap and water is just as good. It's just you can't really carry it in your purse.
Right.
So,
Well,
you
you
know,
can if you can get yourself a little bottle of it.
of like
Uh,
hand soap, yes, and bring it
yeah,
with
you,
you.
you can, which isn't a bad idea either. Carrying that around, because you can usually find a faucet somewhere. You usually
Mhm.
can't find all the time antibacterial hand soap,
Mhm.
but you can carry it with you if you've got it.
Mhm.
You
Yeah.
know, so,
And then
re-
before the show, you and I were just kind of talking about the whole discussion around the vaccines, and it's a ways out. And
oh yeah,
I worked in biotech. I didn't really work in a branch that did vaccines, but I did work in a facility that did have like process development. And sometimes these things take months to years, and I'm sure they're going to try to expedite it. But um, it's going to take a little bit of time before there's a vaccine for this. And for those people who are afraid that they're going to get microchipped, like, take a deep breath, and there is other ways to accomplish that. They don't necessarily have to put it in a vaccine if they
yeah,
were even to do that.
yeah,
But right now we're having a hard time struggling with just getting the testing going here. So that the vaccine stuff is out a ways away. So,
oh yeah.
if you are
It's,
getting anxiety because you think you're going to get microchipped in the future, I would encourage you to take a breath.
yeah, and then just don't get the vaccine. It was that simple. You'll be fine. Roll them dice. That's what I say. You go ahead and roll them dice. Yeah, the whole vaccine thing. I, people being all fucking weirded out by all this, the Bill Gates conspiracy shit right now. People, shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up. Enough.
Well, I think if you look back in history, you can see that the human population does experience an airborne illness of great infection rate about every 100 years, and about every 500 years we get a more severe one.
Mm-hmm.
So there is kind of a cyclical, natural process to this.
Yeah.
And so that, that certain people are predicting that it's not that much of a prediction based on the past history of our known history.
Mm-hmm.
We know that we've had airborne illnesses that are very infectious and affect the population with high mortalities. It happens. It's
Yeah.
something that if you look back at your history, we should have probably been at this point more prepared for it. And anyone who was thinking about these things, if they're saying, oh, this is what we should prepare for, that is not a prophecy. It's not like a pulling out of the blue. It is simply looking at what data already existed and saying, okay, yeah, we're due for another one.
Yeah. It's kind of true. I mean, it's a sad fact. It's the truth. It's the statistical truth of the matter. And people don't want to accept it, but it's the truth.
Yeah. So for me, it's not prophecy, it's probability.
Yeah.
It's based on probability. There is a certain amount of chance that this would happen, and it has happened. So
and will happen again. It will happen again. It's the chances of it happening again are very likely. This has happened throughout time.
yeah. So it does. Your body is your, in a lot of ways, and we're going to tie this into the topic, your sacred space. So it is, your boundary of your being. So, it is a sensitive thing, and anything that can affect the boundary of your being, can raise the flags, as it should. This your body as your entity, or some people put it as your temple,
right,
is your most basic unit of your personal sacred space.
Yeah.
So things that affect that, disease being one of them, should be something that you spend some time thinking about.
Everybody, welcome to the Personal Space Show.
Right now,
stay out of my personal space here. I don't even like my skin in my personal space.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, and then everybody just be good, be safe, take care of one another. And like now's the time to like check on people, be generous. Like we'll get through it together and then figure it out on the other side. But that's the thing, you can't stop helping each other just because it's over. With something like this, like the just kind of make sure everybody's okay. There's a lot of people suffering financially. I've seen a lot of people post, like one of my relatives had posted, hey, if you need food or whatever, just fucking message me. Don't fucking go hungry, or don't let your kids go hungry, or so don't just, if you need help out there, reach out. There's people out there that can help you. And that's the point. So on to the topic of the day, though, Holly. After, we have to do the lovely coronavirus, because it's everything we're going through right now, and everyone's going through right now.
Right. It's almost like a selective pressure. Everyone is experiencing it, but we're all experiencing it in our own like separate ways.
Well, yeah, and you kind of like it almost feels natural that you kind of have to talk about it. So,
yeah,
I've been talking about it so much on the 40 and slip, and I haven't been doing the news past couple of weeks. I fell off. It was my birthday one week, and it's just been crazy. I will get back into it, but I'd been talking about it on there too. It's just what's going on right now. So it probably won't go away anytime soon, as far as a topic being talked about regularly on these shows. But it is what it is. So. But yeah, we'd wanted to talk about sacred spaces, and I had told people early on that I would put up an image of of my the altar that I used to use for my when I practice ritual magic, and the altar is actually sitting over there on the bed right now because I took it out so that I could take this photo. And it would be too awkward for me to have it over here to like point shit out. So I figured I'd just put an image up of what it is. But my take with all of this stuff, as it always has been, is that people need to find what works for them and what resonates as their truth when it comes to deciding on your own spiritual path and how you want to relegate that and what type of template you want to use for yourself. And I think that's very important that you decide what's right for you. Holly is one of those people who tends to take a more shamanic path. When I look at stuff like this, I look at it like a problem. So to me, it makes sense to look at it in the ritual magic sense because it makes more sense to me that it has a definition throughout everything. There's a purpose, there's a reason for this, for that. It's like a math equation. So to me, that made sense. So that worked for me. But what works for me or what works for Holly may not work for you. So for us to sit here and try to tell you that, what we do is what you should do, I think that's very, that's, what's the word I'm looking for, Holly? God damn it. It's too early. I woke up.
We're not trying to be prescriptive here or like dogmatic at all. But offering up potential.
Yeah, I lost what I was going for anyway. But so the whole thing is though, like I think that you should find something that's yours. And what what you see here, this is it's based on some other things that are already present, but it's something that I made for me. And for me, what I wanted for my altar, for this thing that I would have before me as I would do these sometimes very complex rituals, was a big reference card, basically, is what I was looking for. Because not only could it like symbolize what each direction is or what each thing is, it could also have the meaning where if ever I'm like doing something and I'm stuck, I have it right there in front of me. There's so many references to so many different rituals on that wood burned into that thing. It's fucking insane. Like I put so much stuff onto that like it is I mean, to me it's a piece of fucking work. But it's got everything. Like it's got the Enochian tablet of the elements in the middle. I put a lot of Enochian stuff on there.
So if a listener doesn't know who Enoch is, do you want to explain who Enoch is?
Well, Enochian has nothing to do with Enoch, in my opinion. Enochian was.
I thought it was pertaining to Enoch.
Enochian is a language that was determined by somebody. I can't remember the guy's name. And then they attribute a bunch of it to like the elements and stuff, and all of that is just mired within this thing. There's all kinds of Hebrew on there. There's all kinds of sigils. There's references to the planets. There's references to the astrological signs. There, like I said, the references that I have on there, generally, there's a lot of it that's just there to make it look, full. I was like, what can I throw in here to like fill this in? But there's a great portion of that stuff. Like if you look, there's different like stars, pentagrams, as they're more commonly known, and other things that are on there. And they have a noted mark on them. And that's where you start drawing it in the air for a particular ritual. So there's all just put there so that I would have something to look at if I ever got stuck, because like some of these rituals are fucking pretty complex. And if you're constantly looking at it, the chances of you forgetting it midway are also a lot less than if, you never do. So I always had it right there in front of me. Everything. Like all the stuff for the what's known in ritual magic, the lesser banishing ritual. All the stuff is there for that. There's stuff there for another banishing ritual. And there's I believe there's stuff on there for consecrating the tools for magic. For like I have the stuff for the rose cross ritual on there. I'm just trying to look it all over and go through it in my head.
Yeah, I can't read it, so
yeah, and there's just so much on there. Like I literally went crazy. Like all the elements are at each one of the corners there. Like I said, the references to all the different rituals and how different things are done. Invoking rituals, banishing rituals. It's all on there. But I was just looking for something that, kind of encapsulated all of that and gave me that, but otherwise, like I would set up like my crystals or my candles and I have crystal balls and shit like that. That would be set up regularly, that I would use as like, my quote unquote sacred space. Cause I do think you should get yourself into a mindset. Like when I was practicing ritual magic, they recommend that like you have garb that you only wear for when you do your rituals, so that it makes it special. Like it gives it its own feel. And I agree with that. I think that's a good idea to have that, okay, now I'm going to do this. Like in some of the stuff that I had read, they suggest like that you take a shower prior, like cleanse yourself of all your bullshit, and then you go in, you change into your fucking garb, and then you do your thing. And I think it's important. I do think it's important to help get yourself into that mindset. To have those things yours. Like I had a friend who had he had robes made. Like he had silk and velvet fucking robes made up. Had somebody sell them for him. Cost him, I can't remember what it cost him in total with all the fabric and everything. But people get really, into what they're doing, and they want it to have a feel. And I completely agree with that. This is something that's for you. This isn't for anybody else. It's for you. You know, I don't. I mean, if you want to do it for other people, that's up to you. Then that's also for you. And yes, Jevin, I kind of did have my Book of Shadows wood burned into my altar. I wood burned it into my altar. All of that work was done by me, and no one else did that. I spent hours and hours and hours and hours working on that motherfucker. So, yeah, nobody else wood burned it. I did it. But yeah, you need to find what works for you and go with that. You know, I think you totally agree with that.
Absolutely. I think you have to kind of ultimately develop your own personal practice. But I also think for people who are beginners and they don't know where to go, or they don't quite feel quite empowered, you know, meeting up with others, learning about some of the more established traditions can be helpful, and you can kind of learn what rings true for you. Like for you, the path of like ritual magic, and this was kind of like along the lines of the Golden Dawn, right?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of
Similar, but not quite.
not quite, yeah.
Yeah.
That is something that made sense to you, and then you kind of took the basics of what you learned and made it into a more personal practice for yourself.
Correct.
For me, like that to me seems to that doesn't feel like my style. And
Right.
and like you said before, my style has been more of the kind of the shamanic type of a expression. And I don't do it exactly the way that the Peruvian shamans do it in the Andes. And I don't think you should, because I think it's important to include an element of your own personal energy
Mhm.
in expression and how you interact in interface. So a lot of these ceremonies are in some way either interacting with the energy or kind of with the spiritual realm. And a
Yeah.
lot of times when we are creating sacred space, we are creating a space that's either somehow clear or protected or kind of insulated, so that you can do a specific task or have a specific experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, so for all, like for me, that's a lot of detail. I personally wouldn't know how to use that, although there are commonalities. You can see like the directions, and the directions in the shamanic tradition are very important. And the circle space around the practitioner is in almost every tradition is important, where you are establishing an area of clear kind of um, pure energy around yourself in order to interact with the unseen.
Yeah.
And to the degree of how you interact with the unseen kind of depends on what you believe and what you want to experience. Maybe all you want to do is just have a clear, quiet space around yourself to meditate, and that is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So for you,
If you needed, if all you need is just a little space, that's cool too. You know, it doesn't have to be elaborate.
no. So you might just want to have your space uncluttered and clear in your room, so that you can sit down and meditate and really clear your mind and not get distracted by the mess in the corner. And that is absolutely a form of creating sacred space. It might be something more elaborate, like what Chris has done, so that you can do a more elaborate ritual to interact with the energies in a specific way. It might be.
And for the record, like anything else is doing the same exact shit.
Mhm.
Like it's not like if Holly does like one of her rituals, like that type of work, it's the same shit. It's just wrapped in a different package. That's all it is. She's doing it according to this way, which works for her. You know, it all comes from the same source. And I also wanted to know, for those of you who are listening on the as a podcast, not watching on YouTube, the images of my altar are actually on YouTube during the show right now. I have it up so that people can see it. So if you want to check it out on YouTube, you can.
And I wanted to say that just because Chris and I have a more maybe pagan or natural spiritualism bent doesn't mean if you go into church and you sit down and they have the opening prayer, that's creating sacred space in church. It is
Oh
a
yeah.
way of creating just like a moment in time where you are connecting with
The
whatever you
divine.
want to, with the divine, with whatever you want to connect with. So
Yeah.
the Christian tradition, other kind of traditions too, those opening prayers is that way of making that moment dedicated for that kind of interaction and exchange.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do. I think, you should definitely take some time and think about what it is that you want to do. If you want to take yourself down one of these paths, like seriously sit down and look at them. Take some time and read about shamanism or Wicca or witchcraft or Druidism or paganism, ritual
Or even
magic,
Christianity,
or
or
yeah,
Buddhism, or
or Buddhism, or friggin', these are all viable spiritual methods, obviously. But sit down and take a look before you just go diving in. Like I would say one of my biggest regrets early on is like not having any direction and just diving head first in and not having any fucking clue what I was doing. And then later on going, oh, I got to take a look at this. So then I took a broader look and realized what I was looking for than what I thought. And it ultimately it worked out. However, had I not been so scattered in the beginning, I think I would have come to things a little sooner. But I was very, very scattered in the beginning. I mean, I started looking into this stuff when I was very young. I was in my teens. My early teens too. Like I'm talking like 13, 14. So it's been a long time that it's just been, rattling around in my brain. But this, like you were saying, this is the stuff that worked for me. This is the stuff that made sense to me. When I looked at these types of rituals, these types of processes, to me, it looked like a math equation. And when I look at math equations, I see these things of balance, these things of, not to be like all fucking weird, but like these things of beauty. Like a math equation is a balanced thing. It always is, no matter what. And I looked at rituals the same way. I looked at them as these balanced things that you had to like move around and like you had to put things in their proper place. You had to do this, and then you had to do that, and then you had to do this, and that it all had a process, and that made sense to me. So it worked. You know, and I did foolish things early on, like severely foolish things, like just silly willy-nilly stuff. That I would just go, like I said, I just jumped in. I'll never forget this one time. It was hilarious. Because I was cocky. I was extremely cocky. And whether or not this what happened is relevant, if it's if it's if it's just a coincidence, it could very well just be a fucking coincidence. But early on, when I first started out, I was like, I'm gonna quit smoking cigarettes, and I'm gonna use magic to do it. So I, found this, ritual thing to do, and I did it, and went about my merry way. Well, I didn't quit smoking. And then a couple months later, my lung collapsed. And a guy that I used to do a lot of studying with and work. I would call him a mentor. And he came in to see me while I was in the hospital. And he goes, "That was probably the best bit of magic I think I've seen in a long time." And it's that whole be careful what you wish for. Now, like I said, I don't know. That could have been total coincidence. To me, it was a slap. It was like, think about what you're doing here. Just think about it for a second. You really want to better yourself. And I did. And I have for a long time, and I've failed horribly along the way. But that was one of those things that just kind of kicked you in the ass. Made me fucking go, ooh. I kind of had a little bit more respect for what I was doing, I guess, after that.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I think that's good advice, though, because I think sometimes people will play with sacred space and sometimes with unseen
people just
forces,
dive in.
and they do not necessarily know what or believe what they could potentially be interacting with. And like that's a whole philosophical experiential discussion on if non-physical entities exist or not, but certainly in the shamanic tradition they do.
Yeah, and
if you're going to go down that path, you need to be prepared that you may find something that you're not quite
I
prepared to
think
deal with.
you're gonna attract things that you're not generally prepared for. I think the whole like staring in, the longer you stare into the abyss stares into you, like that type of shit. I do believe in that type of shit. I think a lot of it is very much mental. In that you wind up dealing with a lot of inner conflict when you start going down these roads. And I think that's good, but it can also open up wounds and open up pain that you're not ready for. I know, for some people, it can open up some really horrible shit. They start seeing themselves in a certain way. I saw some people just go fucking absolutely bonkers and just like run away from it because they were like, no. And it because you get a good look at yourself. Once you start getting a good look at yourself, it's scary. You start tearing away all that shit that your ego fucking puts up to make you look good to yourself. And you start seeing the base creature. But you have to love that base creature because that's you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, and I think oh, and hi to Frank, hi to Bad Gaming 69. I don't know, I haven't seen Johnny Smith before, but hi to you too.
Hi, Johnny Smith.
But definitely with this kind of like the shamanic tradition that a lot of the purpose of why we would use sacred space is to create a kind of a container to do those deep dive looks at some of the darker places of yourself.
Right. I think it's kind of a way to compartmentalize when you do those things and when you look at those things. When I seriously went back and started looking at like how the Golden Dawn operated and places like that, systems like that, it was very obvious to me what they were doing. And I was like, oh wow. They were trying to hack their own brains. They were just giving symbols to everything. They were creating a system to hack their own brain. It's fucking brilliant if you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you indoctrinate these people, you make them believe this structure, and then the structure allows them the ability to hack their own consciousness. Like, that's the basis idea for
Mhm.
it. It's brilliant.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I think a lot of times when people do in shamanism, what we call is the shamanic journey, which is kind of a guided visualization in your own imagination.
Mhm,
But it is a way to kind of access your mind in this kind of brain hacking sense.
mhm,
And sometimes things come up that you don't consciously expect, but it's your mind, so it has to be there.
yep,
And it is a way to bring into consciousness things that you were not conscious of.
yeah.
And essentially, that is brain hacking.
Yeah, and I think that with a lot of the things that you do as well with the shamanic tradition, there's a lot of that same type of stripping away, grounding, um, all of that's all still there. Every tradition has some form of something that some other one does when it comes to like your basic shit. You know what I mean? They all have like that basic stuff.
Yeah,
And
there's a
I
lot
love
of
that. I love that there's an underlying thing that ties all of it together.
yeah,
So,
absolutely. And sometimes we get too caught up in the differences and fighting about the differences.
oh yeah.
But really the kind of the conversation is, how do groups of people across the world sometimes have these common ways of interacting with their own minds?
Hmm.
And the underlying processes for connecting to your inner spirit and to that sense of the divine.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's super important. I think seeing yourself for what you are and striving to be better than that. Um, I think that's important. You know, and I think the world could do better by people acting that way and conducting themselves that way.
Hmm.
We don't, you know, uh, uh, do I always do the right thing? Fuck no. Hell no. I fuck up constantly. For the record, like I still don't practice this stuff, and I've thought about getting back into it and trying to, find some like happy medium in my life. Um, but you know, I'm just presenting to you what I looked at, what I've seen, what I feel. But I don't practice it anymore. So, but I think that I could do well by it if I did. Like I think it would do right by me, like giving me like a rudder, giving me like some direction. Um, maybe finding a course, so to speak. But I don't discount it. I still believe in it. I still hold on to it. I don't sit there and go, it's shit, you know. Um, but this is what it is. And I think that if you're gonna go out there and find something, and try to create these sacred spaces, try to create something that is for you, you need to take some time to find out what that is going to be, what system that's going to be, what works for you. Don't just settle. Don't just be like, this is good. This is what my friends do, or whatever. Find what works for you because otherwise you're just being untrue to yourself and it won't have the same feel. It won't flow properly, in my opinion.
Well, and I think that we can totally also kind of disconnect it fully in some ways to this idea of God. because I think that sometimes we really tie the idea of a spiritual practice to the idea of God, but that's not true for all traditions, and it doesn't have to be true for you.
Right.
And you could
And
be
like
someone who,
Holly said before too, you can still be a Christian or a Buddhist or whatever, and follow those traditions like we're talking about here. My point is that there's no difference. They all have their own thing. Your Christianity has prayer, and they still have their rituals. You know, it's the idea that this stuff is somehow, uh, you know, not it's devil's work, and you do the same shit. It's just a little different. Like, I always said that rituals were like prayer, like artistic prayer. It was like I painted it. That's the way I looked at my rituals. It was like I painted my prayer today, because to me it was art. Like, I sat down and I created it. I made it. I didn't always follow what was in the book. I went outside the box and made it my own. So to me, it had a piece of me in it, and that was important. But I think people should strive for it, reach for it, go for it. If it feels right for you, do it. One of the things that I adore about Holly is this thing she has where, she's gotten into this tradition. I don't know exactly what it is. I know that it's shamanism, but that you found this thing and you're so just enamored with it, and you love it, and it's this fresh thing for you, and it you know it made me think about things in my life from my past, and even how I relate to things now, hearing you talk about things, with how
um,
you are.
yeah, well, I think my personal journey, because it's been very important. Like you talked a little bit about your journey. My journey is different in a way, but you know, because I grew up in a small Protestant church, and I still do. I don't want anyone who listens to think that I'm a church hater, because I'm not. I
Yeah, no,
have
I'm
a
not.
I have a wonderful um memories of going to church with my family. Um but there came to be a point where I felt like I was missing something and that I needed something more. And I had suffered some very personal losses that were affecting me um in a very chronically depressed way, that it was just like making it very hard for me to get out of bed. And after taking, antidepressants, and um and still trying to like drag myself out of bed and trying to find a zest and wanting to really live my life, you know um I got to the point where I felt like I needed something else, was just not working. And it started actually not for me to find a new form of spirituality for myself. It started as a way to find a way to, one, love myself, and to just be able to live the life that I have with authenticity, and not feel like a fake, and
Yeah.
not feel like I was putting on a show for other people.
I think at its base level, for a lot of people, finding something like this type of spirituality is very much about finding happiness.
Yeah, absolutely. It was for me being able to make sense of some awful things that had happened in my life, and be able to live in my own body.
Mhm.
And um at one point I didn't consider myself fit to live. At one point really wanted to commit suicide. At another point, um and and yet I had such a dedication to my family, I couldn't do those things. But that's still a very miserable place to feel when you are that depressed and that
Mhm.
self-loathing in your own body. And I really, really got to the point of, in a way, I was like almost unconsciously killing myself because I wasn't taking care of my body well enough, and I wasn't enjoying this life. Our lives are so precious, and there is so much to enjoy. But if you can't get past your personal trauma, you can't enjoy it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'll just sit and spin your wheels.
I was absolutely stuck in the mud,
Yeah.
and it was for me reconnecting to my own personal, trying to find my own personal healing when the antidepressants weren't working, and I was having a lot of like chronic body pain, and they were going to try to diagnose me with fibromyalgia, and I just didn't feel like that was really what the problem was, because I knew the truth on the inside even though I couldn't tell people. It was, I'm really depressed, and like my life is feeling to me, and I wasn't doing anything wrong. I wasn't, I looked like a normal citizen. I was going to work. I
Right.
was married, but
Right.
internally I knew that my life was such a lie that I couldn't, my body was fighting it, and it was not thriving because
You were self-hating while everyone was seeing like this facade on the outside.
100%.
Yeah. No, I think a lot of people have been there.
Yeah.
You know, you get into that routine, that rat race of the daily thing where this is what I have to do. I have
Mhm.
to do this thing because this is what you're supposed to do. You get up and you go to work and you do this thing and you smile and you put on a happy face for everybody. And
Yeah.
inside you die.
Oh, yeah, I was so dead on the inside, and I was not living my life for me. I was living my life for other people, and
Yeah.
my life became an extension, like a tool for other people to meet certain goals, whether
Yep.
it was at work, meeting work metrics, or if it was at home, meeting family. You know, your parents, it is not a malicious thing for most people, but everybody has parents who want things for their kids, but it may not be actually true to what your heart calling is. I was
Mhm.
not doing anything that spoke to my heart.
Right,
I
right.
was
And most people don't. Most people just find whatever job they can get, which is locally around them or wherever they wind up, and they just that's their lot in life.
Yes. And sometimes it takes a personal, like what they some people call it, like the dark night of the soul. I definitely had this like dark night of the soul period where I could barely get out of bed.
Yeah.
I just was like dragging myself places. I cried all the time, almost every day. Um and I was in a marriage that wasn't bad, but it wasn't the right person for me.
Mhm.
And again, I fully will admit to people that my ex-husband is a wonderful person, and we are still friends. But I knew deep down in my heart that I did not see myself with this
You
person, so
settled.
I totally settled. And a lot of people settle.
Yeah.
And you know what? When you are in a marriage where you have settled, it slowly destroys you.
Mhm.
It was slowly destroying me, and I thought it was the right thing for my daughter, and I thought it was like the right thing for all these other reasons, except for the fact that it didn't make my heart happy, and I didn't feel like me anymore. And it
Yeah.
took my personal journey of, I have to be able to live in my own body and be happy with myself. And I don't care what people tell you, there's no amount of antidepressants that are going to fix that.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll get you a little bit better so that you can get in a better mental health place where you can make decisions and get yourself back aligned with who your true essence is. But you cannot continually medicate that.
Yeah,
You
no,
have to make you have to make the changes on the inside.
well, not only
And
that, but you have to make the changes on the outside too. You have to make the physical changes too. You have to get out and move. Like,
yeah.
I think one of the things that, you do that is so awesome is that you get out. Like, you go for walks.
Hmm.
Like, you do that type of shit. Like, you're a hiking person, like that, you know, you need that too. That's part of being healthy. Being stagnant and sitting around. Like, you can do all this other stuff that we're talking about, Holly. Like all of
Yeah.
this, yeah, I would call it kind of self-help stuff, this spirituality thing.
Yeah.
You can do all of that. But if you're not like taking care of yourself and being healthy and getting out there and moving around, that stuff only takes you so far. And it's been proven now too that like exercise, it like really helps with like your mood and depression and things like that. So there's more components to all of this that people need to take into account, I think. And
Mhm.
one of them, I think, is exercise.
Absolutely. But for me, I had to get to the place where I could feel like happy enough to exercise.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So sometimes you have to sometimes you're caught in a loop and you have to break the loop.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you need to find something to help you break that loop, you
mhm,
know. And I totally agree with that.
mhm.
So it's a weird place to be in. It's a weird place to not know your place.
Well,
Eh,
right, and I had to really kind of look at some truths about myself that were very painful.
yeah.
That was I was avoiding,
Mm-hmm.
and and that was hard, right? It took
Yeah.
me a long. I mean, I was married for almost 10 years. It took me 10 years to get to the point where I could be honest enough with myself to say, I settled and I'm not happy.
I fucked up.
I fucked up.
Yeah. And it happens. Like we all do that type of shit. We
Right.
all we all do those things. And hey, once it's done, it is what it is. Nobody's got a fucking time machine. Fucking the doc is not showing up with the fucking DeLorean. We're not going back. We're not fixing anything. Like that's not happening. It's done. It's done. We all fucking wind up getting ourselves into those fucking pickles. It's how we fucking move on from there. That matters. I was just
Well,
talking to somebody like fucking was it last night? Was I saying it last night or I can't remember now, but the fact that if somebody told me 2 years ago, 2+ years ago, right after my ex-wife left me, you're gonna be grateful that she left you. I'd have laughed. I've been like, you're fucking out of your mind. I'm fucking so depressed right now. My life is shit. All I want is her back. And today, I'm just like, I'm so fucking glad. That's perspective. Like that's in a nutshell. That's like you could be at these so horrible places in your life where you're just like, and you have no clue, no fucking concept of the idea that in a couple of years you're going to look back on it and laugh and just laugh because you've got a whole new perspective on it. Like, why were you so upset? Why were you so upset? I say that to myself all the time. Why were you so fucking upset, dude? Oh, and I know why. Like, if I was to go back and be in it, I'd be right in the same fucking place. Oh, my fucking life is over. What am I gonna do? You know? But that perspective, and sometimes I think doing this type of stuff, and I don't know if this worked this way for you, Holly, but starting to go down these paths and taking a look at yourself gives you that perspective, allows you to see those things and look back on things in your life and go, oh, I really overdid that. Or, oh, I really overcomplicated that thing.
yeah, I mean, it gave me um a framework where I could look at some of my experiences that were not so pleasant.
Well, no, and it's never
and
pleasant to look at yourself in that way.
and say, okay, that did not turn out the way I wanted it to. But I learned this about myself, and I got through this.
Yeah,
And you know what? I am not, that worthless piece of dog shit that I thought I was. Because
right.
I got through this and I actually did it in a way that, you know, I now and now gotten myself back where I want to be.
Hmm.
And when you kind of get to that point, you realize other people's judgments don't matter because you're so comfortable and knowing yourself. What's outside doesn't matter so much.
Hmm.
Which isn't to say that, you shouldn't take other people seriously. You should, but for me, and other people can do other things. I'm just saying what it was important for me was getting to the point where I could look internally at myself and love me
And that's important.
and be able to be me. Um,
Without any apologies.
yeah, and not be worried about rejection or not because it didn't matter anymore. I loved myself enough. Um,
Well,
I could be
I think the
okay.
biggest thing is a lot of times, and I think a lot of us do it. We apologize to ourselves for ourselves,
Yeah,
and we shouldn't be doing that.
yeah,
You know, you should just be yourself and enjoy yourself. Yes, there are shitty things about you. You can fix those shitty things about you if you so wish to do that. Change that thing. You can do that. That's your option. And I think that these systems, be it whatever it may be, Buddhism, like we were talking about, Buddhism, Christianity, Wicca, witchcraft, ritual magic, shamanism, these systems can help you be a better person if you use them for that 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 purpose. It can take you there. Um, but if you're starting down this road and you're starting to set yourself up like a sacred space, like we were talking about today, take your time. Find something that feels right, that works for you. Don't just jump in. Don't just start doing shit. Um, Take your time and feel it out, and you'll find something that feels right for you, and and you'll eventually wind up there. I knew one woman years ago. She bounced. Oh my God. She went from one thing to another thing to another. By the time I talked to her at the end, she was like, "Oh no, I'm doing this now." Like, what the fuck? She just couldn't settle on a thing. It just every time she would find something, she'd find something else that felt different, and that's okay too. Um, but yeah, I'm gonna wrap this up, Holly. Unless you got anything else you got pressing on you to to bring up.
Uh, no, I'm good. Um, but I did like the mathematical thing. Maybe sometime we can do a talk on like sacred geometry
Oh yeah, yeah.
and that because
There's
that's
all
a
kinds of weird stuff.
whole thing.
Yeah,
So
it goes down a whole nother road. But yeah, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Slip Into the Night, episode 28, I believe. Could be wrong on that one. Sometimes I fuck up on the episode numbers. Sacred Spaces. If you like this show, hit that little thumbs up button. If you don't, hit that little thumbs down button. Leave a comment, subscribe. Check us out over on Anchor. That would be anchor.fm/the Freudian slip. I am in the process of trying to get the show onto Stitcher. I set up the stuff for it yesterday, so I'm working on that. And I'll try to keep everybody informed as I know about that. But until next week, we'll be back with another topic for you guys, hopefully, God willing, during this whole lovely pandemic. Until next time, take care, everybody.
Stay safe and well.